We all know gratitude is good for us, but have you ever considered the role of gratitude in adventure? That's what we're going to talk about today.
Welcome to the What Could Go Right podcast. We are your hosts, Erik, Orton.
And I'm Emily Orton.
And here we talk about personal growth and sailing. In 2014, we moved aboard a fixer-upper sailboat and bootstrapped a year sailing with our 5 kids, and it changed our lives forever.
We tell the whole story in our memoir, our book, 7 at Sea. On this podcast, we want to help you go from fear to freedom, one adventure at a time. So it's Thanksgiving. We know you're going to be spending time with people that you love, or hopefully you are, and doing things that you love. But we just want to take a quick moment. First of all, thank you so much for listening. We hope this is encouraging you on your journey to live more intentionally, to grow as a person, to just have meaningful relationships and enjoy your experience in life. And maybe if you're sailing curious, have a little something for you there as well. But today we just want to talk a little bit about the role that gratitude plays in adventure. Before we lived on a sailboat, I never really thought about this before, but it became very clear that gratitude actually saved the day and kept us from giving up.
Yeah, I mean, when we got our boat and we moved aboard, we immediately regretted our decision. And I won't go into all the details of why, but we were ready to sell the boat back, get on the next flight home, and beg for my job back and just sit out the winter in New York rather than be on the boat in the Caribbean, even though it was what we'd wanted to do for so many years and for so long. And we decided to take the boat out one time before we decided what we would do.
Before we gave it back.
Before we gave it back. And we sailed to this nearby island called Tinta Mar. It was a terrible experience. And again, I won't get into all the nitty gritty, but it
felt dangerous.
It was a really dangerous channel that we went through to get out into the open ocean. Once we got onto the ocean, we all got seasick. Once we got to the island we were headed to, we had the hardest time anchoring. I was angry, frustrated, nauseous. The kids were all feeling miserable. And we just kind of collapsed on the floor and slept wherever we were that night. And the next morning we got up and we took the little dinghy to shore. It was a new day. We were rested. Our boat was at anchor.
We had pancakes for breakfast.
And we asked the kids on the beach, we said, the question that got us out here is what could go right? That was the question that, in answering it, convinced us to flip the switch and go. I said, we need to know what's going right now. And we videoed their responses, and they were so beautiful. They were thankful for the breeze. They were thankful for the pancakes they'd eaten that morning. They were grateful for the water. We were grateful to just hold hands. Lily was grateful to hold Karina's hand while they played in the water. And so whatever challenges you're facing right now in life, and also when you're on an adventure, pause and take stock. What's going right now? What are you grateful for right now? That's been a big game changer and lifesaver for us in some of our own travels.
That moment of gratitude did not increase our sailing skill set. It didn't pad our bank account. It didn't heal our cuts. It didn't alleviate our nausea. But it gave some counterbalance to all of those negative things we were feeling weighed down by and overwhelmed by. And it gave us the stamina and the courage to keep going. And we did not end up quitting. We kept going. We stuck it through that beginner threshold that can be so stout, as you like to say. And we moved into the beginner intermediate phase, and then into the intermediate. It got more comfortable. It got easier. We figured out what we were doing. We made friends. We developed routines. And gratitude helped us get through that rigorous passage of just being beginners and being rookies in an entirely new environment. And so we highly recommend that to you because it was an incredible life-changing trip. And I think the saddest stories we've heard, we were talking to someone who said, oh yes, we had the same idea. We actually bought a boat, a beautiful boat, a full-size refrigerator, and we got all our kids out on the boat. And on the first day, everybody got seasick. And so we said, this is not for us. And we turned around and sold the boat and flew home. And that was just heartbreaking to us to hear because we know what they missed out on as a family and as individuals, and the people that they would have met and touched missed out also. And it's because that first gauntlet is pretty treacherous, but gratitude can really, it can help. I'm not talking about toxic positivity and just pretending things are good, but what are the things that actually are good? And yeah.
Can I share some recent examples?
Oh yeah, if you've got some.
So as we mentioned in a previous episode, we went to Moab recently as a family for the first time, and some things did not go as planned. I wanted to, it was going to be the kids around here were on break from school. So I figured it might be crowded. And a lot of times the first come, first serve campgrounds fill up. So I was like, I'm going to book a place to make sure that we've got somewhere. So I booked this Airbnb campground. And we had been told by many friends and family that it might rain a little, that it was going to be stormy, but we're hardy campers. And so we went anyway.
And it looked like it would be over by the time we arrived.
Yeah. So we got down to this place and I had dropped a pin where our campground was supposed to be. And we drove right to that spot and it wasn't there. So we kept following the directions and we ended up driving for 25 more minutes to get to this campsite. And it involved, because apparently Airbnb wouldn't let them drop a pin where it actually was. It had to be close to some address. Anyway, the campground was in a very different spot than where we had planned it would be. And the further down this road we drove, the more and more frustrated I got. And the road deteriorated in quality. It said in the instructions it's going to turn into a
dirt road.
It's going to turn into a dirt road, and it's best to have a four-wheel drive vehicle. But it had also just rained a bunch. And so it was not just a dirt road. It was a muddy road. And we were skidding and sliding. And
we did get to go off-roading.
And we're like plunging through troughs of water that are splashing mud all over the vehicle. And we finally get to this spot. And first of all, the camp spot is a mud pit. Second of all, oddly, there's somebody in it, even though almost every other site in the place was open. And so we went over to the host trailer and knocked and like, yeah, this isn't going to work out. We're going to need to head out. And they were very gracious. She said, reach out to the owner, the court. Anyway, she said, just reach out. They'll fully give you a refund. And I totally get not wanting to be at the end of this dirt road. And kind of, she gave the whole explanation about the why the pin was so far away from the actual location. I'm like, okay, fine. We drove back and skidded out through this muddy road, and turns out that because of the rain, the campgrounds were mostly empty enough that we were able to get a spot right where we wanted to be anyway. Way better, like a tenth of the cost.
True.
And we had a beautiful view, and we wanted to be right by this area called Wall Street where there was rock climbing. And so I was grateful for a few things. One, I was grateful that we went for it, and we had the assurance going down, we have a place to be.
Yeah.
And we could have stayed there if we wanted to, but we got there and we changed our minds. And I'm grateful that we were able to get an even better campsite at a lower price. Not that I was so worried about cost, but it's always nice when you can.
It was nice. Yeah.
And it was great. And then also I'm grateful that we had the right kind of vehicle to kind of take us safely through discovering all that. Having the kind of, what would have made it worse is if we'd just gotten stuck halfway between one side or the other and not been able, or if we'd kind of skidded off road and went over an edge or somehow wrecked. And so I was grateful for that.
I was grateful we got to low-key go off-roading in our four-wheel vehicle without any extra charge. It was like, okay, that was enough for starters.
And then the other thing I would say is we set up our tent, and as I mentioned, our friends were staying in a hotel and we were camping, and it was rainy, and there were some nice things about being in a hotel. But also, when we woke up one of those mornings and it was raining, I'm grateful that I got to hear the sound of rain just pattering on the tent, which is a beautiful, relaxing, peaceful way to wake up.
I know we saw our friends and they said, "Oh, did it rain?" And they had been perfectly sheltered from the rain, but they didn't get to hear the rain on the tent. And they also had an amazing experience.
But they also had a hot tub, but
which they shared with us,
which I was also grateful. So I'm grateful for friends that were staying in a hotel, because we kind of got the best of all the worlds. And so I guess for me, those are examples of being grateful in an adventure when things don't go right. I easily could have fallen into an old habit and just been frustrated and angry and sort of shook my fist at the Airbnb gods. But it turned out to be even better than I thought. The whole weekend turned out to be even better than I thought.
And I was grateful we had a neighbor who let us borrow some foam pads, because usually our camping sleep is super uncomfortable. And at least for me, I'm very cold. And this time I was perfectly insulated and comfortable the whole time. I was dry and warm and cozy, and that made it a lot more fun. I was really grateful that we had brought tables. We thought we were going to be at a campsite with no tables, and we ended up at one with a picnic table. So we had a spare, which was perfect because we kept all our stuff up high. As it continued to rain, which had not been previously forecast, our stuff wasn't like setting on the ground somewhere, getting soaked and muddy. I was grateful we keep our things in bins for stacking and orderly, and it kept them dry also. And I was grateful that even though it seemed like when we arrived we had forgotten cutlery, actually it was in
the pocket on the backside of the driver's seat.
Right. It was in the car, but we didn't figure that out for the first couple of days. And everybody was just so game to eat.
With spatulas.
Oh, yeah. I got a spatula. I have a measuring spoon.
Eat with whatever.
And we were grateful to have food, and it tasted great. And everyone just kind of rolled with it. And like you said, it was a beautiful scenery. And I was really grateful that there was one 24-hour dry period that allowed us to actually do a little rock climbing, even though we were in sandstone. So yeah, we could have come home from that trip and told the story of the horrible campsite and someone taking our campsite and the mud and how it just kept raining. But we also could tell the story of how we got this amazing campsite and we were there with awesome people, and our daughter Lily just set a personal record for hiking 8 miles over the time we were there without a single complaint, because she's recently had her tonsils out and now she could breathe, and just like it. And we ran into people we weren't expecting, and it was an incredibly magical trip. And it just really depends. Both are true. And it just depends on which story you want to tell and which story is going to serve you better. And for me, I love seeing all of the magic and the things that we had to be grateful for that kept us going and will, in fact, inspire us to go out and do it again in the future. We're not going to come home and say, "Oh my gosh, why do we ever even leave the house? Everything's muddy." It just...
There's no internet out there.
There's no internet. Yeah. And so you get to choose which story you tell. And I hope you'll choose the one that has a lot of gratitude in it.
So yeah, as you get together with people you care about and hopefully eat food that you like and reflect on what you're grateful for, things will probably not go according to plan. Some recipe won't work out. Some conversation will
go sideways.
You might spill something on your favorite outfit. Somebody might get stuck. Their flight might get canceled, or your flight might get canceled. All kinds of things can go wrong when it's a holiday weekend. But hopefully in whatever adventure you're having, you'll be able to view it through the lens of gratitude and find the fun side of the adventure that you're actually on. Because it's not an adventure until something goes wrong.
Yes. But as we always like to end this podcast saying, what could go right?
Hey guys, it's Erik. Before we sign off today, I just wanted to share with you 2 things. First of all, I want to share with you some thoughts, some takeaways from the folks that actually joined us on our Sardinia trip. So at the end of the next few podcasts, I'm going to be sharing some clips directly from them. Also, we've had some shifts in our January sailing trips to the Virgin Islands. 2 trips. Each one has had 1 cabin's worth of people have to shift to another time. So January 20th through the 25th, We now have one cabin available for 2 people if you want to join us on that trip. Also, if you want to join us January 27th through February 1st, 2 folks also had to switch, so now there's a cabin available on that trip. So the last 2 weeks of January, if you want to stay on the British Virgin Islands, it's a beautiful time of year. It's 85 degrees, sunny, windy, like good sailing wind. So anyway, if you're interested in that, email me at hello@theawesomefactory.nyc, or you can DM me on Instagram, or just go to our website /sailing, and you can click up a time to speak directly. Anyway, I'd love to welcome you aboard. All right, Jay, how about you?
You're gonna have to say mine.
So I guess let's see. I think that
Super duper, yeah.
this trip has totally exceeded my expectations. The boat is amazing. The captain was amazing. I guess if I was a little worried about anything, it would be how throwing 8 people from different places in the country together, and to see how they would meld and work together, and the crew was amazing. It just, we all seemed to just work well together, and whether it was working on deck or working in the kitchen, it seemed like we were able to function pretty dang decently as a crew sailing this boat. So I thought that was pretty good. What else?
2 words to describe
So
it.
my 2 words would be it was fulfilling and satisfying.
Appreciate that, Jay.